re-smurf it.
Keep on smurfing and don't let him out of your smurf.
It was 1979. An NBC executive spotted a small blue toy in a Colorado gift shop and had no idea he was about to launch one of the longest-running Saturday morning cartoons in television history. This is the entire story of the Smurfs. The village in the forest. The Smurfs live in a hidden village deep in a medieval forest, a grove of enormous mushrooms hollowed into houses, occupied by 100 tiny blue creatures who are 3 apples tall, dress in white, and are named for the single personality trait that defines everything they do. Papa Smurf leads them, 543 years old.
Hey, ho, 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 be calm, be calm. Let's go to greet them.
Dressed in red to set him apart, a skilled sorcerer and the village's father in every sense. Around him, Brainy, who knows everything and is wrong half the time. Clumsy, who means well and breaks things. Smurfette, who began as Gargamel's creation and became the village's heart. Jokey, who gives explosive gift boxes to anyone who will take them. Grouchy, who dislikes all of it. Hefty, who can carry anything. Harmony, who plays every instrument badly. Handy, who builds. Greedy, who bakes and eats. Vanity, who carries a mirror and uses it constantly. Their enemy is Gargamel, a sorcerer who lives in a stone house in the same forest and has dedicated his life to catching the Smurfs.
Well, Smurf, did you spill your treasure?
What treasure?
The reasons shift. Sometimes he wants to eat them. Sometimes he needs them for a potion. Sometimes he simply cannot tolerate that something so small is so happy. His cat Azrael wants to eat them for simpler reasons. Neither of them ever succeeds. The show ran from September 12th, 1981 to December 2nd, 1989 on NBC. 9 seasons, 256 episodes, 417 individual stories, and across all of it, Gargamel never won. The Purple Smurfs. The first story anyone who watched the show remembers starts with a single insect bite. A strange fly bites one of the Smurfs on the tail while he is out in the forest gathering supplies.
Ouch! It bit me! What's happening?
The Smurf turns purple almost immediately. His normal personality, whatever it was, disappears entirely. He cannot say anything except a single repeated syllable over and over in an increasingly urgent tone. And he bites other Smurfs on the tail. The ones he bites turn purple too. Within a short time, there are 2 purple Smurfs in the village, and then 4, and then more. The infection has its own logic. The more Smurfs get bitten, the more Smurfs are doing the biting, and the healthy ones have to spend increasing amounts of energy staying away from an accelerating number of purple ones. The purple Smurfs do not sleep. They do not rest. They wander the village and the surrounding forest with a single-minded focus on finding new tails to bite.
Take him to his house.
Knap, knap!
The last case of this was when I was only a young Smurfling.
And they are perfectly happy to chase a healthy Smurf up a tree and wait at the bottom for as long as it takes. Papa Smurf watches his village hollow out around him as Smurf after Smurf goes purple. He retreats to his laboratory and works while the purple Smurfs press against the door and communicate through the window in their single-word vocabulary. He tests formulas. He tries solutions. Several of them make things worse. One of them turns all the infected Smurfs temporarily the wrong shade of an already wrong color. He keeps working. Eventually, he finds it, the cure, specific and functional, deployable in a way that reaches the entire infected population at once. He gets it deployed. The village comes back. Every Smurf returns to blue, slightly dazed, with no memory of what they did while purple.
Smurfs are infected now.
Ow!
And these are 16.
Ow!
17.
In the original Peyo comic, the infected Smurfs turned black. The color was changed to purple for the American television broadcast to avoid racial connotations. The change became permanent in subsequent translations and adaptations. The Smurfette. Gargamel builds a Smurf from clay. He follows a formula, dark magic, specific ingredients, and shapes a female Smurf with dark hair and a plain dress. He gives her life and sends her into the village with instructions to cause as much trouble as possible. Her name is Smurfette. The plan works initially. She flirts, she misleads, she creates small disasters, and the Smurfs spend a lot of time confused about why things keep going wrong.
Oh, you startled me. Who are you?
I'm a Smurf. Who are you?
I'm a Smurfette.
But Papa Smurf figures it out. He sits Smurfette down and tells her what she is and what she was made for. And then, instead of sending her away, he offers to transform her with good magic, to make her genuinely a Smurf, rather than a tool built to look like one. The transformation changes everything about her appearance. Her hair becomes blonde, her dress becomes white, the dark magic in her foundation is replaced by something else entirely. When she walks back into the village, she is no longer Gargamel's instrument. She is herself for the first time, and she stays in the village from that episode forward as a full member of the community Gargamel built her to destroy. King Smurf. Papa Smurf leaves the village on a short errand. He tells the Smurfs to behave themselves while he is gone.
Meantime, be sure to finish the repairs on the dam.
You can count on us, Papa Smurf.
He is barely out of sight before everything falls apart. One of the Smurfs, not named specifically in the episode, his identity hidden under the royal disguise he assembles, declares himself King Smurf and begins issuing decrees. The decrees start small and become oppressive quickly. He wants a palace built. He wants guards. He wants ceremonies. He wants his title acknowledged in every conversation. The Smurfs who comply get to live normally. The ones who refuse become a resistance. The village splits in half. The king's supporters build the palace under his direction. The resistors hide in the forest and raid the construction site whenever they get the chance. Full-scale conflict breaks out between Smurfs who have known each other their entire lives. Food fights escalate into something more serious.
Then your Smurf ship. I opened the box.
And boom, right?
And what began as a question of authority becomes a genuine division in a community that has never divided before. By the time Papa Smurf comes back from his errand, his village is in a state of active civil conflict. The King Smurf's helmet comes off in the chaos of the confrontation, and everyone sees who it was all along. Papa Smurf, surveying the wreckage of the village his people inflicted on themselves in the space of a single afternoon, says nothing particularly dramatic. He just starts the work of putting things back together, and the Smurfs who were fighting each other an hour ago work alongside each other to fix what they broke. The Smurfs and the Howlibird? Something is attacking the forest, and it is getting closer to the village.
Face a bit grouchy, you're smurfing behind.
I hate Brainy.
The Howlibird is a massive creature, originally a small, harmless bird that Gargamel accidentally dosed with a growth potion he was brewing for a completely different purpose. The potion did what potions do when administered to creatures they were not designed for. It made the bird enormous and aggressive and impossible to redirect. Gargamel has lost control of it completely. The Howlibird is not interested in working for him. It is interested in destroying things, and the things in its current path include the Smurf village and everything the Smurfs have built in it. The Smurfs try several approaches. None of them work individually. The creature is too large for any single Smurf's capability to address directly, and small groups who try to confront it find themselves moving very quickly in the other direction. What eventually works is the combination.
I have called this meeting to tell you we're in grave danger. This Smurfivorous bird.
Every Smurf contributing exactly what their specific ability allows. coordinated by Papa Smurf, aimed at the one weakness that turns out to exist in a creature built from a growth potion. The effect is not permanent, it fades. And when the Howlibird begins to shrink, the process goes in the other direction until the bird is back to its original size, small, confused, and no longer invested in destroying anything. It flies away. The village is still standing. Gargamel tries everything. Across the first 2 seasons, Gargamel's schemes take every shape he can imagine, and every shape fails in its own particular way. He captures individual Smurfs and tries to use them as bait for the rest. He puts a captured Smurf in a cage in a visible location, steps back, and waits for the rescue party.
If we don't help Gargamel and Azrael, then we're no better than they are.
Oh!
The rescue party always comes, because Smurfs do not leave each other behind. But the rescue party also always dismantles whatever trap he has built around the bait before he can spring it. The Smurfs are small enough to fit through gaps in whatever enclosure he builds, fast enough to disappear through the underbrush before he can react, and creative enough to find the element of the trap he did not think of. He brews potions designed to attract Smurfs, scent potions that smell irresistible to Smurfs specifically, sound potions that generate a frequency only Smurfs can hear, light potions that pulse in patterns he has calculated will draw them in. He follows the trail the potions create toward the village, gets close enough to hear them, and finds that the Smurfs have already identified the potion's effect.
I created you to help me, Smurfette. And you failed.
And either neutralized it or redirected it toward Azrael. He disguises himself as a kindly old traveler, a wounded stranger who needs help, a merchant with goods to sell. The Smurfs are hospitable creatures by nature, and they try to help. They help for about 3 minutes before someone notices that the kindly old traveler has Gargamel's shoes, or that the wounded stranger's wounds seem to heal remarkably quickly when he thinks no one is watching, or that the merchant's cat looks exactly like Azrael wearing a small hat. He tries direct assault. He storms toward the village with Azrael at his side and destruction in mind. The village has warning systems. By the time he arrives, the visible Smurfs have cleared the area, and the hidden ones are in positions he cannot see.
The horrible little monster has run like a coward. No matter.
He destroys several mushroom houses and feels briefly triumphant. Then something drops on his head. Azrael does better than Gargamel in the specific work of locating Smurfs. The cat operates on simpler logic. Find the small creatures, chase them into a corner, and this works more reliably than any of Gargamel's elaborate plans. But the corner always has an exit the cat did not notice, and the Smurfs are faster through the underbrush than a cat who has been living on whatever Gargamel manages to cook. What Gargamel never does is give up. Every failed plan generates a new one. Every new one fails in a slightly different configuration. Paul Winchell voiced him for the first 8 seasons with a commitment to the character's specific brand of theatrical failure that never showed any sign of fatigue.
One of these days, you miserable, wretched beast, I'm going to... Good, they're gone.
Johan, Peewit, and the wider world. In the 2nd season, the show expanded beyond the village and into the medieval world surrounding it. Johan is a young page in service to a king, brave, competent, and genuinely good-hearted in the way of the classic adventure hero who does the right thing because it is the right thing rather than because it serves him. Peewit is his companion, small, round, perpetually confident in his own musical abilities, and completely wrong about them whenever he picks up an instrument. He is also loyal in the uncomplicated way of someone who has decided which side he is on and does not revisit the decision. Both characters came directly from Peyo's original Johan and Peewit comic strip.
That little fool Peewit! Little fool Peewit!
the series in which the Smurfs had first appeared as supporting characters in 1958. The Smurfs originally existed in Johan's world. The animated series brought that relationship onto American television and gave the Smurf village its first regular connection to human characters who knew it existed. Johan and Peewit knew the location of the village and had a standing relationship of trust with Papa Smurf, built over years of mutual help. When they needed something that required magic, or small-scale precision, or the specific knowledge of the forest that only the Smurfs had, they came to the village. When the Smurfs needed allies with access to horses, castles, swords, or the political structure of a medieval kingdom, Johan and Peewit were the ones they called.
Because I left Sir Pippy tied up like a Christmas goose back in the wood.
Their presence gave the show a second operational mode. Alongside the village stories, where Gargamel's latest scheme was the primary conflict and the resolution came from the community working together, there were now adventure stories set in a wider world, with threats on a different scale and human stakes alongside the Smurf ones. A wizard terrorizing a kingdom, a false king who had imprisoned the real one, a magical artifact that needed to reach the right hands before the wrong hands got there first. The Smurfs were not always the center of these stories. Sometimes they were the crucial element in a story that was mostly about Johan. The combination gave the writers room across each season without abandoning the Mushroom Village at the show's core. Baby Smurf arrives. In the third season, a basket appears at the edge of the village.
Oh, goodness me.
Inside the basket is an infant Smurf, tiny even by Smurf standards, delivered by a stork in the tradition that the show treats as entirely normal and requiring no further explanation. No one knows where baby came from or who left the basket. The village adopts him without hesitation, which means in practice that every Smurf becomes an occasional caregiver, and the village's shared life acquires a new center of gravity that nobody voted for and nobody resists. Baby Smurf does not speak. He interacts with the world through expressions and sounds and the specific gestures of an infant who has not yet developed subtlety, and the village reads him the way any community reads a child entrusted to its collective care.
Do you empty-headed, goo-goo.
Which is to say, often incorrectly, but always attentively. Papa Smurf watches over him with the patience of someone whose 5 centuries of experience have calibrated his sense of scale. An infant's crises are urgent and pass quickly, and the important thing is to be there for them. The other Smurfs take turns, sometimes willingly, and sometimes because baby has followed them to whatever they were doing and has sat down in the middle of it, and it is now their responsibility whether they chose it or not. His presence in the village also changed how the other Smurfs responded to threats. The community that had been managing its own problems with a combination of ingenuity and communal effort now also had something small and completely dependent at its center, and that changed the weight of any situation where the village was at risk.
I'll get some Smurfberry jam. I've got an extra blanket. Plus Smurf some flowers.
Gargamel, who had already found the Smurfs extremely difficult to catch, found that a village with an infant in it was operating at a level of protective collective instinct that even his most elaborate plans had difficulty penetrating. The Smurflings and Sassette. By season 5, new characters had been arriving regularly, but the Smurflings changed the village's demographics in a way that nothing before them had. 3 adult Smurfs, Nat, Snappy, and Slouchy, were accidentally de-aged by a malfunctioning time crystal into children. The de-aging was not reversible, or at least was not reversed. They stayed young, adjusted to their new circumstances with the specific resilience of people who do not have an alternative, and wore individual clothing rather than the standard white Smurf uniform that every other Smurf wore.
That's happy, Sassette's happy, Happy's happy.
Nat's interest was nature and animals. Snappy's was arguing. Slouchy's was general comfort and the avoidance of effort. All three were recognizably themselves at whatever age the crystal had dropped them into. Sassette came through a different door. Brainy Smurf, in a moment of ambition that the other Smurfs recognized immediately as a bad idea, decided to follow Gargamel's original Smurfette formula. He had read Papa Smurf's records of the incident carefully. He was confident he understood the process. He assembled the clay and the ingredients, applied what he understood of the formula, and created a new Smurf. Papa Smurf caught the project at the critical moment and applied the same transformation spell he had used on Smurfette.
I do feel Smurfy happy.
Happy?
The good magic that replaced the dark magic underneath, turning a created figure into a genuine Smurf. Sassette came through exactly the way Smurfette had, genuinely herself, warm, and immediately at home in the village. She wore pink. She called Papa Smurf Pappy, which he did not discourage. Wild Smurf and the Forest. Season 7 brought a Smurf who had never seen the village and did not know what a Smurf was. Wild Smurf had been lost in the forest as an infant. The circumstances were unclear, and raised by squirrels in the high branches of the old trees. He wore a tunic made of leaves rather than the white Smurf uniform. He communicated in animal sounds, the specific chirps and calls and warnings of forest creatures, rather than the Smurf language.
Races in a row!
I hate 5 races in a row!
He moved through the treetops with the speed and certainty of someone who had grown up there and never had a reason to come down. When the other Smurfs found him, he was not immediately receptive. He had no framework for understanding what they were, even though they looked like him. They were creatures who lived on the ground in hollow mushrooms, made sounds at each other in a language he did not know, and seemed to expect that this should mean something to him. It did not. He stayed in the trees. They waited below. The process of Wild coming down from the trees and into the village ran through multiple episodes and did not resolve neatly. He learned individual Smurf words. He learned what the houses were for. He learned that Greedy's kitchen produced food that he found preferable to what he had been eating in the canopy. He remained a creature of the forest in his instincts.
In fact, I hope that bog goblin does show up, so Wild can send him back to the...
When Gargamel appeared, Wild's response was to move through the treetops at speed and deal with the situation from above, in ways that the Mushroom House Smurfs found both effective and startling. He became part of the community without entirely leaving the forest behind, and the village eventually stopped treating his treetop excursions as a problem and started treating them as his contribution. Grandpa Smurf returns. In Season 8, the oldest Smurf anyone had ever heard of came home. Grandpa Smurf was 549 years old, 6 years older than Papa Smurf, which meant he remembered a time before Papa Smurf was in charge of anything. He had been gone from the village for longer than most of the current inhabitants had been alive.
Help us Smurf it in time?
You think there's a chance?
We must try. Let's return to the village and...
Away on adventures in distant parts of the world that he described with the casual detail of someone recounting a Tuesday. He brought a walking stick that had its own history, stories that nobody else could verify or contradict, and a perspective on the village's current problems that came from having seen versions of those problems play out across centuries. Papa Smurf treated him with the specific deference one extends to someone who has been right about more things over more time than you have, which was a novel position for Papa Smurf to occupy. Nanny Smurf joined the village in the same season, an elderly female Smurf whose oversized hat covered most of her face and who had been missing from the community for so long that most of the current Smurfs had never met her. She had gotten lost on a long journey at some point in the distant past.
Once, Grandpa was a Smurf among Smurfs, and we shall never see his like again.
and spent an extended period finding her way back. Her return was treated by the village with the warmth of a homecoming that nobody had expected to actually happen. The time travel season. The 9th and final season changed everything, and not in a direction that worked. NBC executives, looking for ways to refresh a show that had been running for 8 years and whose audience was aging, decided the Smurfs needed a new format entirely. A magical wishing well was introduced, one with the ability to transport the Smurfs through time, dropping them into different historical periods each week. One week, they were in ancient Egypt, navigating pharaohs and pyramids. The next, they were in the Renaissance, dealing with painters and inventors. Then the American frontier. Then classical Greece. Then somewhere else.
No! I better smurf out of here and get help!
The premise removed the village from the center of the stories. It removed Gargamel as the central antagonist. Gargamel existed in one specific time period, and most of the stories were set somewhere he could not follow. It removed the communal dynamics that had made the show's best material work for 8 years. The specific comedy and warmth of a community of 100 named Smurfs, with fixed personalities living in a fixed place, knowing each other completely, and dealing together with whatever showed up at the edge of the forest. What remained were the same characters: Papa Smurf, Brainy, Smurfette, Clumsy, Grouchy, and the rest, dropped into unfamiliar settings and required to navigate historical periods with the same skills they had used in the forest.
Another point for Hefty.
Arc de Triomphe! Who needs to know the answers when you can like it or smurf it?
The skills worked, the texture did not. Without the village as the fixed point of the story, the specific weight of the community dynamic, the reason Brainy being thrown out of a room was funny, the reason Papa Smurf's patience carried emotional weight, the reason Gargamel's failures felt satisfying, lost its foundation. The historical settings gave the stories new visual variety, but not new life. The writing staff struggled. Without Peyo's close involvement, he was dealing with serious health problems and had gradually reduced his oversight of the production. The writers were working without the creative anchor that had kept the series oriented across its best years. They added more slapstick. They added pop culture references that felt out of place in a show that had always existed in its own specific time.
Two can play at that game.
The episodes still happened every week, and they were still recognizably the Smurfs. But they were not the same show. The final original episode aired on December 2nd, 1989. NBC canceled the Smurfs the following spring, clearing its entire animated Saturday morning lineup for live-action programming. After 9 seasons and 256 episodes, starting with a purple epidemic in a hidden mushroom village and ending somewhere in the sweep of human history, the Smurfs went home to the forest one last time. What remained? The show had captured 42% of the Saturday morning audience on its premiere day in September 1981.
Why, Smurf, huh? You're under arrest. Now get moving.
Arrested?
The most highly rated children's program in more than 8 years. It won the Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Children's Entertainment Series in 1983. It became Hanna-Barbera's longest consecutively running series. It produced 7 television specials alongside its regular run, including the 1982 Christmas special and the 1982 Springtime special. Peyo, Pierre Culliford, died in December 1992. The characters he had created in 1958 as supporting players in a different story had by then outlived their original context by several decades and showed no sign of stopping. A live-action hybrid film arrived in 2011. A sequel came in 2013. A fully animated film arrived in 2017.
Hey, Smurfette. My Smurf is worse than my life.
Whatever you do to me.
a new CG animated series launched on Nickelodeon in September 2021. For the generation that watched the Smurfs in its original Saturday morning run, from September 1981 through December 1989, it was a fixed point of childhood. The mushroom houses, Papa Smurf's red hat, Gargamel's furious failures, Brainy being thrown out of frame, Jokey's gift box detonating in whoever's hands accepted it, the specific sound of 100 tiny blue voices going about the business of living in a hidden place that the world could not find. If this brought something back that you haven't thought about in a while, or if you're discovering it for the very first time, hit the like button and subscribe. There's a lot more story worth telling right here. See you next time.